When I asked if I could say a few words at my grandson's birthday, my daughter-in-law leaned close to my ear and whispered something so vicious, so cruel that it took my breath away. "You're so boring. Your husband probably died just to escape you." Without thinking, I threw my glass of wine directly in her face. My son rushed over and snapped, "Apologize or you're out." I looked at him, at his wife dripping with red wine, at the shocked faces of their guests, and I laughed. Then I said the words that would change everything. "Let me tell everyone the real reason she married you." What I revealed that afternoon destroyed her carefully constructed lies and saved my son from a fate worse than he could have imagined. And I don't regret a single word. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you my story. My name is Mildred Thompson, and I am 70 years old. For 48 years I was married to the love of my life, Walter Thompson. We met in 1974 at a community organizing meeting in Chicago's South Side. He was a young civil rights attorney, passionate and brilliant. I was a newly minted teacher, idealistic and determined to change the world one student at a time. We argued about strategy that first meeting. He thought I was too cautious. I thought he was too reckless. And by the end of the evening, I knew I was going to marry that man. We wed 6 months later in a small ceremony at my parents' church. Walter wore his best suit, the one he saved for important court appearances. I wore my mother's wedding dress, taken in at the waist and hemmed at the bottom. We had no money, no fancy reception, no honeymoon. What we had was love. Deep, abiding, unshakable love. We built a life together in Chicago. I rose through the ranks of the public school system, eventually becoming principal of Frederick Douglass High School, where I served for 20 years. Walter built a successful law practice specializing in civil rights cases, fighting for those who had no voice. We weren't wealthy by any measure, but we were rich in what mattered: purpose, community, family. We had one son, Raymond. He came to us late. I was 35 when he was born. Walter was 37. We'd almost given up hope of having children when Raymond surprised us. He was our miracle baby, our gift, our everything. Raymond was a beautiful child, intelligent and driven like his father, compassionate and thoughtful like I hoped he'd be. He excelled in school, went to college on academic scholarship, then medical school. He became a surgeon, one of the best in Chicago. Walter and I were so proud we could burst. When Raymond was 38, he married his college sweetheart, Denise. She was a lovely woman, kind and grounded. They had a son together, Jaden, my grandson. The moment I held that baby, I felt Walter's hand squeeze mine, and we both cried. Our legacy continued. But tragedy struck when Jaden was only 6 months old. Denise was killed in a car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light. Raymond was devastated, broken in ways I didn't know a person could break. He threw himself into his work, leaving Jaden in my care more and more often. Walter and I didn't mind. That baby was our joy, our light. Then, Walter got sick. Cancer. Pancreatic. Stage 4 by the time they found it. The doctors gave him 6 months. He lasted 8. Stubborn man that he was. Those 8 months were agony, watching the strongest man I'd ever known slowly fade away. But even in his weakness, Walter was concerned about Raymond. "Something's off with that woman," he said to me one evening about 3 months before he died. "What woman?" I asked. "The one Raymond's been seeing. Vanessa, I don't trust her, Millie." Something in her eyes. She looks at Raymond like he's a prize to be won, not a person to be loved. I had met Vanessa only twice at that point. She was beautiful, couldn't deny that, younger than Raymond by 7 years, with a smile that seemed a bit too practiced, a laugh that came a bit too easily. She was charming, attentive, always saying the right things, but Walter was right. There was something calculated about her. "You're just being protective," I told him, squeezing his thin hand. "Raymond's been through so much. Maybe he deserves someone who dotes on him." "There's a difference between doting and hunting," Walter said darkly. "That woman is hunting." 2 weeks later, something happened that would prove Walter prophetically right. I was at Memorial Hospital visiting Walter during one of his many stays. I'd stepped out to get coffee from the cafeteria when I saw her. Vanessa, she was walking down the corridor of the oncology wing, not where Raymond worked, carrying a bouquet of flowers. I was surprised to see her. Raymond was at work in the surgical wing on the other side of the hospital. Why would Vanessa be here? Curious, I followed her at a distance. She stopped at a private room, knocked gently and entered. Through the open door I caught a glimpse of the patient, an elderly man gaunt and clearly very ill. Mr. Pemberton, Vanessa's voice carried out, sweet as honey. I brought your favorite flowers. How are you feeling today? I moved closer, pretending to check my phone. Vanessa dear, the old man's weak voice replied. You're too good to me. Every day you come, you're like the daughter I never had. You've been so kind to me, Vanessa cooed. The least I can do is keep you company. Now let me fluff those pillows for you. I peered through the crack in the door. Vanessa was indeed fluffing his pillows, but I noticed how her eyes swept the room, taking in the expensive equipment, the private accommodations. This man had money. Serious money. I learned his name from the placard outside his door. Harold Pemberton, room 4412. Something about the scene disturbed me deeply, but I couldn't articulate why. It looked innocent enough. A young woman visiting a sick old man, but the way she looked at him, the way her attention seemed both excessive and hollow, it reminded me of something Walter had said about her, hunting. I mentioned it to Walter that evening. Harold Pemberton, he repeated thoughtfully. The name sounds familiar. I'll look into it. Even dying of cancer, Walter couldn't stop being an investigator. 2 months later, Walter passed away peacefully in his sleep, holding my hand. His last words to me were, protect our boy, Millie. Don't let her take what's real. I didn't fully understand what he meant until later. 3 months after Walter's death, as I was still drowning in grief, Raymond announced he was marrying Vanessa. I was shocked they'd only been dating for about 8 months. Don't you think this is too fast? I asked him gently. Mom, I love her. She makes me happy. After losing Denise, after losing Dad, I need happiness. Can't you understand that? Of course I can, baby, but marriage is a big step. Why not wait a year, get to know her better? Raymond's face darkened. I knew you wouldn't approve. You've never liked her. I barely know her, Raymond. That's my point. Well, get to know her. She's going to be your daughter-in-law. I tried. Lord knows I tried. But Vanessa made it clear from the start that she had no interest in knowing me. She was polite when Raymond was watching, surface-level pleasant. Never warm. But when we were alone, her mask would slip. You know, Mildred, she said to me once shortly after the wedding, Raymond and I are building a new life together, a modern life. We don't really need to dwell on the past. The past includes his son, I pointed out. And me. She smiled tightly, of course, but some things need to evolve. We can't cling to old ways forever. Old ways. She meant me. Then I remembered Harold Pemberton, and something Walter had told me before he died. I looked into him, Walter had said, his voice weak but his mind still sharp. Harold Pemberton, real estate mogul. Widower, no children, worth about $10 million. And guess what? He changed his will 3 weeks ago, added a new beneficiary. Who? I asked. His lawyer wouldn't say specifically but mentioned it was a young woman who'd been like a daughter to him. Walter had looked at me significantly. Sound familiar? My blood had run cold. After Walter died and Raymond announced his engagement, I did something I'm not proud of. I used my connections built over decades in Chicago's education and civil rights communities to do some digging of my own. What I found confirmed my worst fears. Harold Pemberton died 1 month after Walter, leaving Vanessa $200,000 in his will. She wasn't family, she wasn't even a longtime friend, just someone who'd visited him regularly in his final months. But it went deeper. Before Harold Pemberton, there was Richard Chen, elderly businessman dying of liver disease. Vanessa had befriended him at his assisted living facility. When he died, he left her $150,000. Before Richard Chen, there was Thomas Wright, retired judge, heart condition. Vanessa had met him at a charity event, visited him regularly when he got sick. He left her his beach house in Cape Cod. 3 wealthy, elderly, dying men. 3 inheritances. 3 relationships that began suspiciously close to their deaths. And now she had her sights set on my son. A successful surgeon making over $500,000 a year. I tried to warn Raymond. I showed him what I'd found. He exploded. How dare you investigate my fiancé? This is paranoid, Mom. These men probably just appreciated her kindness. She's a caring person. Raymond, please, just look at the pattern. The only pattern I see is my mother being jealous that I found happiness after losing Dad. You can't stand that I'm moving on. That's not true, I want you to be happy. I just don't trust her motivations. Well, I do. And I'm marrying her. You can either accept it and be part of our family, or you can keep spreading these lies. Your choice. What choice did I have? If I pushed harder, I'd lose my son entirely. And I couldn't lose him. He was all I had left of Walter. So I swallowed my concerns, pasted on a smile and attended their wedding. The wedding was lavish, far more expensive than anything Raymond and Denise had had. Vanessa insisted on the best of everything, the dress, the venue, the flowers, the food. Raymond paid for it all without complaint. She deserves it, he told me when I gently suggested they scale back. She's given me so much joy. What had she given him really? I wanted to ask, but I held my tongue. The first year of their marriage, Vanessa was on her best behavior. Attentive to Raymond, tolerant of Jaden, civil to me. She quit her job as an administrative assistant. Raymond makes enough for both of us, she said, and devoted herself to redecorating their home, planning parties, climbing the social ladder. But as time went on, cracks began to show. She had no patience for Jaden. He was 3 when they married, a sweet but energetic boy who missed his grandmother's constant presence. Vanessa would sigh heavily when he needed attention, roll her eyes when he made messes, snap at him for being too loud. He's a child, I told her once. Children are loud. Well, he needs to learn to be quieter, she replied coolly. In our house we have standards. Our house. As if Jaden, who'd lived there since birth, was an intruder. And her treatment of me grew steadily worse. She'd make snide comments about my age, my clothes, my old-fashioned ways. Oh, Mildred, you wouldn't understand. You're from a different generation. Mildred, must you always bring up the past? It's so depressing. Mildred, maybe you should consider moving to one of those senior communities. You'd have friends your own age. Each comment was delivered with a smile, always when Raymond wasn't around to hear. And when I tried to mention it to him, he'd wave it off. You're misunderstanding her, Mom. Vanessa just expresses herself differently. You two need to find common ground. Common ground. With a woman who saw me as an obstacle to be removed. The worst was how she'd reference Walter. Oh, you're telling another story about Walter? We've heard them all, Mildred. Still grieving after 2 years? At some point you have to move on. Walter. This, Walter that. The man is dead. Let him rest. Each comment was a knife to my heart. But I endured it. For Jaden. For Raymond. For the memory of Walter, who'd asked me to protect our family. Then came Jaden's 4th birthday party. Vanessa had planned an elaborate affair. Not for Jaden's sake. The boy would have been happy with cake and a few friends in the backyard. No, this was for Vanessa's sake. A chance to show off to her wealthy social circle. She'd rented a party planner, ordered a 5-tier professional cake, hired a children's entertainer, sent engraved invitations. It's just a 4-year-old's birthday, I said to Raymond when he told me about it. Vanessa wants Jaden to have the best, he replied. Did she? Or did she want her guests to be impressed? The party was held at Raymond's house, a massive 6-bedroom property in Chicago's Gold Coast that Vanessa had insisted they buy after their wedding. It was filled with guests I didn't know. Vanessa's friends mostly, other wealthy women with perfect hair and designer clothes, talking about vacations and renovations. I arrived early, carrying the cake I'd baked myself. It was Jaden's favorite chocolate with peanut butter frosting. The same recipe I'd made for Raymond when he was small, the same recipe my mother had made for me. Vanessa met me at the door. Her smile was tight. Mildred, you brought, what is that? Cake, Jaden's favorite. I always bake his birthday cake. Oh, that's sweet. But we have a professional cake. $300. It matches the theme. Let me just put this in the kitchen. She took the cake from me and I never saw it again. The party was chaos. Expensive chaos. Children running everywhere. Parents sipping champagne. The entertainer making balloon animals. Through it all, Vanessa circulated like a queen, accepting compliments on her party planning. Jaden found me sitting alone by the fireplace. Grandma. He ran into my arms. Did you bring my cake? I did, baby. It's in the kitchen. His face lit up. Can we have it? Later, sweetheart. After the party cake. He climbed into my lap and I held him close, breathing in his little boy's smell. Soap and grass and pure joy. He was so much like Raymond had been at that age. So much like Walter. I miss Grandpa. Jaden said suddenly. My heart clenched. I miss him too, baby. Tell me about him again. So I did. I told him about Walter's laugh, about how he'd tickle Raymond until he couldn't breathe, about how he'd read bedtime stories doing all the voices, about how he loved chocolate chip pancakes on Sunday mornings. Jaden listened with wide eyes, absorbing every word. This was how Walter would live on, through stories, through memories, through the love we passed down. Jaden, Vanessa's sharp voice cut through our moment. Come here, time for gifts. Jaden climbed down reluctantly. Coming, Vanessa. He still called her Vanessa. Never mom, never mama, just Vanessa. And she never corrected him, never tried to build that bond. The gift opening was a spectacle. Expensive toys, designer clothes, gadgets no 4-year-old needed. Vanessa photographed everything, no doubt for her social media. Then Jaden opened my gift. It was a photo album, leather-bound, with his name embossed on the front. Inside were pictures I'd carefully selected. Jaden as a baby with Walter holding him. Walter teaching him to walk. Walter reading to him. Walter's last photo with Jaden taken just weeks before he died. Each picture was labeled with dates and little stories. Jaden's face transformed with pure joy. Grandpa, he exclaimed, clutching the album to his chest. Look, Grandma, it's Grandpa. Yes, baby, so you'll always remember him. I love it. I love it so much. He ran to show Raymond, who looked at the album with misty eyes. Mom, this is beautiful, Raymond said, his voice thick. Thank you. For a moment I felt connected to my son again. This was the Raymond I knew, the one who valued family and memories. Then Vanessa appeared. A photo album. She arched one perfectly sculpted eyebrow. How nostalgic. She turned to her guests. Maldred is very into the past. A few of her friends chuckled politely. Can I say a few words? I asked, standing up. I'd like to share some memories of Walter with Jaden, for his birthday. Raymond nodded. Of course, Mom. But Vanessa stepped close to me, her back to the guests. She leaned in and her whisper was pure venom. You're so boring, Mildred. Always going on about your dead husband. You know what? He probably died just to escape you. The world stopped. I heard her words, but my brain couldn't process them. Surely she hadn't just said that. Surely no human being could be that cruel, that heartless. But she had. She'd just told me that the love of my life, the man I'd spent 48 years with, the father of my child, the grandfather of hers, had died to get away from me. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a conscious decision. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. The wine glass I'd been holding half full of red wine flew from my hand directly into Vanessa's face. The red liquid splashed across her perfect makeup, stained her white designer dress, dripped down her shocked face. She screamed. A high theatrical scream that silenced the entire party. Oh my God! She threw wine in my face. Every guest turned to stare. Children stopped playing. The entertainer froze mid-balloon animal. Raymond rushed over, his face a mask of horror. Mom, what is wrong with you? Vanessa was crying now, big, dramatic tears that mixed with the wine on her face. She attacked me, Vanessa wailed. I was just standing here and she threw her drink at me. For no reason. No reason. I found my voice trembling with rage. You just told me my husband died to escape me. Raymond's face flickered with something doubt, concern, but then Vanessa grabbed his arm. I said no such thing. She's lying. She's always hated me, Raymond. From the very beginning. She's jealous and bitter and now she's making up lies. Raymond looked at me, then at his wife. Torn? Mom, you can't just throw drinks at people. She said Walter died to escape me. I repeated, my voice rising. 48 years, Raymond. 48 years of marriage. And she says he died to get away from me. I didn't say that, Vanessa insisted. She's delusional. Old people get confused. I am not confused. My voice was strong now, powered by righteous fury. I know exactly what you said, you vicious, heartless woman. Raymond stepped between us. Enough. Both of you. He turned to me, his face hard. Mom, you need to apologize, right now. You assaulted my wife in front of all our guests. Apologize? Apologize? For defending my dead husband against her disgusting insults? Mom, I don't care what she said. You threw a drink in her face. That's assault. Apologize or, he paused, or you're out of this house, out of our lives. You'll never see Jaden again. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Never see Jaden again. My grandson, my joy, my connection to Walter. I looked at Raymond, saw the stranger my son had become. I looked at Vanessa, saw her smirk beneath the fake tears, saw her triumph. I looked at the guests, saw their judgment, their whispers. And then I looked at Jaden standing in the corner clutching his photo album, confusion and fear in his little eyes. Something inside me shifted. The old Mildred, the one who stayed quiet to keep the peace, who swallowed her pride to maintain family harmony, who sacrificed her truth to avoid conflict, that Mildred died in that moment. In her place stood a woman who had finally had enough. I laughed. It startled everyone, including me. A loud, genuine laugh that came from deep in my belly. Apologize? I said, still chuckling. You want me to apologize? Raymond's face hardened further. Yes, now. Or what? You'll cut me off? Take away my grandson? I shook my head. No, Raymond. I won't apologize, but I will do something else. I turned to face the room full of guests. Vanessa's wealthy, sophisticated friends. Raymond's colleague. Everyone who had witnessed my assault. Let me tell you all the real reason this woman married my son. Vanessa's face went white. Raymond, stop her. She's crazy. But I was already speaking, my voice carrying across the silent room. About 3 years ago, before my husband died, I saw Vanessa at Memorial Hospital, not visiting Raymond. He works in surgical. No, she was in the oncology wing, visiting a man named Harold Pemberton. I saw a flicker of recognition on one guest's face. Good. Harold Pemberton was 82 years old, dying of cancer and worth about $10 million. No wife, no children, just a lonely, dying old man. And Vanessa visited him every single day, bringing flowers, fluffing his pillows, being the daughter he never had. Vanessa was shaking her head frantically. This is ridiculous. I was just being kind. Kind? Is that what you call it? I continued. Harold Pemberton died 2 months later. And guess what? He left Vanessa $200,000 in his will. A woman he'd known for less than 3 months. Gasps around the room. Whispers. But Harold wasn't the first, was he, Vanessa? Her face was white as chalk now. Before Harold, there was Richard Chen, wealthy businessman, dying of liver disease. You met him at an assisted living facility where you volunteered. He left you $150,000. And before Richard, there was Thomas Wright, retired judge, heart condition. Met him at a charity event. He left you his beach house in Cape Cod. The whispers were louder now. I could see guests exchanging looks, connecting dots. 3 wealthy, elderly, dying men. I said, my voice steady and clear. 3 substantial inheritances. 3 relationships that began conveniently close to their deaths. I turned to Raymond. And then she met you. A successful surgeon, $500,000 a year, grieving widower, vulnerable, perfect target. Raymond's face was a war of emotions. Shock, doubt, anger, fear. This is insane, Vanessa shrieked. She's making this up. She's always hated me. Have I? I asked calmly. Or have I always seen you for exactly what you are? A predator who targets vulnerable men for their money. Raymond, Vanessa grabbed his arm. Tell her she's crazy. Tell her to stop lying. But Raymond was silent, his mind clearly working. One of the guests stepped forward, a woman I recognized as the wife of Raymond's colleague. Actually, she said slowly, my father knew Harold Pemberton. He mentioned a young woman who'd suddenly appeared in Harold's life near the end. Said it seemed suspicious, but Harold wouldn't hear any criticism of her. Another guest spoke up. Thomas Wright's family contested that will. I remember reading about it. They claimed undue influence. The evidence was mounting, piece by piece, guest by guest. Vanessa looked around frantically, seeing her carefully constructed life crumbling. This is a conspiracy, she cried. You've all been turned against me. No one's been turned against you, I said quietly. The truth is just coming out. Raymond finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Vanessa, is this true? Of course not. She's lying. They're all lying. Am I? I pulled out my phone, because I have documentation, bank records showing the deposits, copies of the wills, dates and timelines. I'd kept everything Walter and I had found, knowing someday I might need it. Raymond, you can't believe this. Vanessa was crying in earnest now, real tears of desperation. I love you. I married you because I love you. Did you? Raymond asked hollowly. Or did you marry me because I'm a surgeon making good money? I, Vanessa couldn't finish. The room was deathly silent. Everyone watching, everyone waiting. Then Vanessa made her fatal mistake. Instead of continuing to deny, instead of maintaining her innocence, her mask finally completely cracked. Her crying stopped abruptly. Her face hardened into something ugly and calculating. Fine, she spat. Fine. You want the truth? Here's the truth. She straightened up, wine still staining her dress, makeup ruined, beauty faded away to reveal the ugliness beneath. Those men were going to die anyway. They were old, sick, alone. I gave them companionship in their final days. I made them happy, and yes, they compensated me for that. What's wrong with that? It's business. The gasps were audible. And you, she turned to Raymond, her voice dripping with contempt. Yes, I married you for your money. Why else would I marry you? You're boring, Raymond, workaholic, obsessed with your dead wife, your sainted mother, your perfect family legacy. I didn't want any of that. I wanted the lifestyle your money could provide. Raymond looked like he'd been punched. Vanessa, he breathed. What? Shocked? Don't be. Half the marriages in your fancy social circle are transactions. At least I'm honest about it now. Honest? I interjected. You've been lying since the day you met him. Vanessa whirled on me. Then you meddling old woman. With your stories about Walter, your precious memories, your endless grief. You know what? I meant what I said. Your husband probably was relieved to die. At least he escaped your suffocating devotion. The room erupted. Guests were talking over each other, shock and disgust on every face. Raymond's face went from pale to red. Get out. Vanessa blinked. What? Get out of my house, now. Your house? This is our house. I'm your wife. Not for long, Raymond said, his voice deadly quiet. Get out before I call the police and have you removed. Vanessa laughed high and brittle. Fine. I'll leave. But I'll be back, with lawyers. I'll take half of everything you have, that's my right as your wife. Actually, I said, stepping forward. No, you won't. She glared at me. Excuse me. I've had a lawyer investigating you for 2 years. Vanessa, a very good lawyer, friend of Walter's. We have documentation of your relationships with Pemberton, Chen, and Wright. We have evidence suggesting potential elder abuse, exploitation of vulnerable adults for financial gain. That's a felony in Illinois. Vanessa's face went from angry to scared in seconds. If you try to fight this divorce, I continued, if you try to take money from my son, all of this evidence goes to the state's attorney. Elder exploitation charges carry up to 5 years in prison, your choice. Vanessa looked around the room at the horrified guests, at Raymond's stony face, at my calm determination. You wouldn't dare, she whispered. Try me, I replied. You insulted my husband, you disrespected his memory, you tried to take my son for everything he has. And worst of all, you've shown nothing but contempt for my grandson. Try me, Vanessa, I dare you. We stared at each other, 2 women, 2 wills, 2 fundamentally different approaches to life. She blinked first. Without another word, Vanessa grabbed her purse from the table, kicked off her wine-stained shoes, and stormed toward the door. Before she left, she turned back one final time. You'll regret this. All of you. And then she was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Then chaos. Guests quickly making excuses to leave, gathering children, murmuring apologies for the unfortunate scene. Within 30 minutes they were all gone. Raymond, Jaden, and I were alone in the massive house that suddenly felt very empty. Raymond sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. Mom, I don't know what to say. I sat beside him, putting my arm around his shoulders like I had when he was a boy. You don't have to say anything, baby. I should have listened to you. Years ago when you tried to warn me, I called you jealous. I accused you of not wanting me to be happy. I was so wrong. You were grieving. You'd lost Denise. You were raising Jaden alone. You were vulnerable, and she knew exactly how to exploit that. Raymond looked up at me with tears in his eyes. She said Dad died to escape you. How could anyone say something so cruel? Because she has no concept of real love. I said simply, she's never experienced it, so she can't recognize it. Did Dad really suspect her, before he died? I nodded. He saw right through her from the beginning. Called her a hunter. His last words to me were to protect you. That's what I've been trying to do. Raymond broke down then, sobbing like he hadn't since he was a child. I held him, rocked him, let him release the pain. I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything, for choosing her over you, for letting her disrespect you, for not seeing what was right in front of me. You see it now, that's what matters. A small voice interrupted us. Grandpa, Daddy? Jaden stood in the doorway still clutching his photo album. Is Vanessa gone? Yes, baby, Raymond said, wiping his eyes. She's gone. Forever. Raymond looked at me, then back at his son. Yes. Forever. Jaden's face transformed into a huge smile. Good. I didn't like her. She was mean. Out of the mouths of babes. Come here, baby, I said, opening my arms. Jaden ran into my embrace. I held him tight, breathing in his little boy smell, feeling the weight of him against my chest. Grandma, can we look at the pictures of Grandpa now? Of course we can. The three of us sat together on the couch, Jaden between Raymond and me, turning the pages of the photo album slowly. With each picture I told a story. Walter's laugh when Raymond got into medical school. Walter's tears when Jaden was born. Walter's joy at every small moment of life. He loved us so much, Raymond whispered. He did. And that love doesn't die, baby. It lives on in us. In how we treat each other. In how we remember. Jaden looked up at me. Grandma, Vanessa said mean things about Grandpa, that he died to escape. But that's not true, right? No, baby, that's not true at all. Your Grandpa loved me every single day for 48 years. He loved me until his very last breath. And I'll love him until my very last breath. That's what real love is. I want to love like that, Jaden said seriously. You will, baby, you will. Raymond was quiet for a long moment, then he said, Mom, I need to tell you something. What is it? When Vanessa whispered that to you about Dad dying to escape, I heard her. I stared at him. You heard her? I was standing right behind her. I heard every word. The anger that flared in me was immediate. And you still defended her, still told me to apologize? Raymond's face crumpled. I know. I was in shock. I couldn't believe she'd actually say something so horrible. Part of me thought I'd misheard, and then you threw the wine and I reacted without thinking. I should have defended you immediately. I should have kicked her out right then. I failed you, Mom. I failed Dad's memory. I'm so sorry. I wanted to be angry. Part of me was angry. But looking at my son's broken face, I saw the truth. He'd been as much a victim of Vanessa's manipulation as anyone. She'd isolated him, turned him against his family, made him question his own perceptions. The important thing, I said slowly, is what you do now. Raymond nodded firmly. I'm filing for divorce immediately. I'm having the house locks changed tonight. I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow. A family lawyer, not someone Vanessa knows. And I'm getting full custody of Jaden. Good. And Mom? I want you more involved in Jaden's life. More involved in my life. I've kept you at arm's length because Vanessa always made me feel like you were interfering. But you weren't. You were protecting us. Like you always have. I squeezed his hand. That's what mothers do. But the story didn't end there. Not by a long shot. 3 days after the birthday party disaster, I received a phone call that made my blood run cold. Mrs. Thompson? The voice was professional. Official. This is Detective Marcus Williams with the Chicago Police Department. I need to speak with you regarding Vanessa Thompson. My heart started racing. What about her? We've received some disturbing information from the families of Harold Pemberton and Thomas Wright. They've filed formal complaints alleging undue influence and possible elder exploitation. Your daughter-in-law's name has come up in our investigation. I sat down heavily. I have information that might help. We were hoping you'd say that. Can you come to the station? I spent 4 hours with Detective Williams, laying out everything Walter and I had discovered, the patterns, the timing, the inheritances. I handed over copies of all our documentation, the will amendments, the financial records, the timeline I'd meticulously constructed. Mrs. Thompson, Detective Williams said when I finished, this is exactly what we needed. We've been trying to build a case, but the families couldn't prove anything beyond suspicion. Your documentation provides the pattern evidence we were missing. What happens now? We'll be opening a formal investigation. Given the number of potential victims and the amount of money involved, this could become a serious criminal case. When I told Raymond about the police investigation, he went pale. Criminal charges? Mom, this is bigger than I realized. Much bigger. Raymond. She wasn't just after your money. She was a professional predator and we stopped her. A week later, Vanessa's lawyer contacted Raymond's lawyer demanding her fair share of the marital assets. She wanted half of everything, the house, the savings, the investments. She was playing hardball, threatening a long drawn-out divorce battle. Raymond called me, panicked. Mom, her lawyer is ruthless. They're claiming I emotionally abused her, that I forced her to quit her job, that she's entitled to spousal support. They're going to drain me. No, they won't, I said firmly. Give me her lawyer's contact information. What are you going to do? What I should have done from the beginning. Fight. I called Vanessa's lawyer myself. When he answered, I introduced myself calmly. Mr. Henderson, this is Mildred Thompson. I'm Raymond Thompson's mother. I need to inform you of some developments that will significantly impact your client's divorce case. Mrs. Thompson, I represent your daughter-in-law. I can't discuss. Then just listen. The Chicago Police Department has opened a criminal investigation into Vanessa for elder exploitation. Detective Marcus Williams is the lead investigator. I've provided them with extensive documentation showing a pattern of Vanessa targeting elderly, wealthy, dying men and manipulating them to change their wills in her favor. Silence on the line. Furthermore, I continued, the families of Harold Pemberton and Thomas Wright have filed civil suits seeking to recover the inheritances they believe Vanessa obtained through undue influence. That's over $350,000 in combined litigation exposure. More silence. Now, Mr. Henderson, here's what's going to happen. Vanessa is going to sign the divorce papers Raymond's lawyer has prepared. She will receive nothing, no spousal support, no property division, no claim to any assets. In exchange, Raymond will not pursue criminal charges for fraud within the marriage, and I will not share my documentation with the civil attorneys representing the Pemberton and Wright families. This is blackmail, Henderson finally said. No, Mr. Henderson. This is leverage. Blackmail would be illegal. I'm simply offering your client a choice. Walk away quietly, or face criminal prosecution and civil litigation that will consume whatever assets she's managed to accumulate. I have 48 years of being married to a civil rights attorney. I know exactly where the legal lines are. Another long pause. I'll convey your offer to my client. You do that. She has 48 hours. I hung up feeling more powerful than I had in years. 24 hours later, Vanessa signed the papers. She walked away with nothing. No money, no property, no claims. The divorce was finalized in record time. But the story still wasn't over. The criminal investigation continued to build. Detective Williams called me regularly with updates. They'd found 2 more potential victims, elderly men Vanessa had befriended in years past. The pattern was undeniable. 6 months after that fateful birthday party, Vanessa was formally charged with 4 counts of elder exploitation and 2 counts of fraud. The evidence was overwhelming. My documentation combined with the victims' families' accounts painted a picture of a sophisticated predator who had been operating for nearly a decade. Raymond called me the night the charges were announced. It's all over the news, Mom. Gold digger charged with elder exploitation. They're showing her mugshot. How do you feel? Honestly? Relieved. Vindicated. Horrified that I was married to her. He paused. And grateful. So grateful to you. If you hadn't been watching, if you hadn't documented everything, if Dad hadn't warned you, I'd still be married to her. She'd still be draining my accounts, planning her next move. Who knows what would have happened to me when I got older? The thought chilled me. Would I have been Vanessa's next target? An elderly widow, with access to her son's wealth. The thought was too horrible to contemplate. You saved me, Mom, Raymond said, his voice thick. You and Dad, even from beyond the grave, he was still protecting us.
That's what love does, baby. It protects.
The trial was brief. Vanessa's lawyer convinced her to take a plea deal: 5 years in prison, full restitution to the victims' families, and a lifetime ban from working in any capacity with elderly or vulnerable adults. I attended the sentencing hearing. I needed to see it through. When Vanessa was led into the courtroom in her prison jumpsuit, her hair flat, her face bare of makeup, she looked nothing like the polished predator I'd exposed. She looked small, defeated, ordinary. Our eyes met across the courtroom. In hers I saw hatred, pure, undiluted hatred. She blamed me for everything. Of course she did. But I didn't look away. I held her gaze steadily, letting her see that I was not afraid, that I would never be afraid of her again. The judge pronounced the sentence. 5 years. Vanessa's face crumpled. As they led her away, she looked back at me one final time. I nodded once. Of acknowledgement. A farewell. A victory. It was over. The aftermath of Vanessa's imprisonment brought unexpected healing. Raymond threw himself into being the father Jaden deserved. He cut back his hours, hired a nanny for the times he had to work, and made sure he was present for bedtimes, bath times, and everything in between. We started family dinners again every Sunday, just like when Raymond was growing up. I'd cook Walter's favorite recipes and we'd tell stories about him, keeping his memory alive. Jaden flourished without Vanessa's cold presence. He laughed more, played more, thrived more. He kept the photo album I'd made him on his bedside table, and every night before bed he'd look at the pictures and say, "Good night, Grandpa. I love you." One Sunday, about a year after the birthday party, Raymond made an announcement. "Mom, Jaden, I have something to tell you." We looked at him expectantly. "I've been seeing someone, her name is Grace. She's a pediatric nurse at the hospital. We've been taking it very slow. I learned my lesson about rushing, but I think she might be someone special." I studied my son's face. He looked different. Peaceful, hopeful, but cautious. "I'd like you to meet her, Mom, but I want your honest opinion. If you see anything, any warning signs, anything that reminds you of her, I want to know immediately. I trust your judgment." My heart swelled. Finally he'd learned. "I'd love to meet her, baby." Grace came to dinner the following Sunday. She was nothing like Vanessa. Where Vanessa was polished and perfect, Grace was warm and genuine. Where Vanessa's smile was calculated, Grace's smile reached her eyes. Where Vanessa had shown subtle contempt for Jaden, Grace got down on his level and asked about his interests. "Jaden tells me you love dinosaurs," she said to him. "I love dinosaurs too. What's your favorite?" "T-Rex." Jaden exclaimed. "Grandma, Grace knows about dinosaurs." Grace looked up at me with kind eyes. "Mrs. Thompson, Raymond has told me so much about you, about your strength, your wisdom, your fierce love for your family. I just want you to know, I'm not trying to replace anyone. I know you've all been through a lot. I really care about your son, and I want to do right by him and Jaden." I looked at this woman, this genuine, kind, humble woman, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. "Call me Mildred," I said, smiling, "and welcome to Sunday dinner." Raymond caught my eye across the table and smiled. A real smile, the first real smile I'd seen from him in years. 2 years after that first dinner, Raymond and Grace married. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends. No elaborate displays, no 5-tier cakes, no showing off, just love. Jaden was the ring bearer. I sat in the front row, clutching Walter's handkerchief, crying happy tears. Grace had asked me to give a reading. I chose 1 Corinthians 13. "Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails." As I read those words, I thought of Walter, of our 48 years together, of the love that had survived death itself, living on in the family we'd built. After the ceremony, Raymond found me. "Thank you, Mom." "For what?" "For everything. For protecting us. For not giving up on me even when I pushed you away. For seeing the truth when I couldn't. For loving me enough to fight." I cupped his face in my hands. This boy who'd become a man. "That's what mothers do, baby. We love fiercely. We protect relentlessly. We speak truth even when it's hard. And we never ever give up on our children." He hugged me tight, and over his shoulder I saw Grace watching us with tears in her eyes. She understood. She was that kind of person, someone who valued family, who respected the bonds we'd built through struggle and loss. "Dad would be proud," Raymond whispered. "He would be," I agreed. "He would be so proud." Sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet and the memories are loud, I can almost hear his voice. "That's my Millie," he'd say. "That's my girl." And I smile, knowing that he's right. I may be 70 years old. I may be a widow. I may be boring by some standards. But I am also strong. I am also fierce. I am also a woman who loves without apology and protects without hesitation. Vanessa thought she could break me with her cruelty. She thought she could dismiss me as a boring, grieving old woman. She thought my love for Walter was a weakness to be exploited. Instead, she reminded me of my power. And that power, the power of truth, of love, of standing firm in what's right, that's something no one can ever take away. Walter didn't die to escape me. He died knowing that his love would live on in me, in Raymond and Jaden, and now in Grace, who has become the daughter I never had. And it does. Every single day. Some stories end with a glass of wine thrown in anger. But the real story is what happens after. The truth revealed, the family healed, the love rekindled. That's our story. Mine and Walter's and Raymond's and Jaden's. And it's a story of love. The kind that never fails. The kind that never ends. The kind that protects, even from beyond the grave. Walter's last words to me were to protect our boy. I did, Walter, I protected our family. And look at us now, stronger, wiser, more grateful for what we have. You were right about her, my love. She was a hunter, but you were also right about me. I was strong enough to stop her. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for loving me for 48 years. Thank you for giving me the strength to speak truth, even when it cost me everything. I love you. I'll love you until my last breath. And that, Vanessa, is what real love looks like. Not boring. Not suffocating. Just real. Just forever. The end.